Our stories in this show all deal in some way with disasters or their consequences.
The story spans a 5-year period.
Now it's time to review our stories and reveal which ones were false and which ones were inspired by actual events. They still talk about what happened that night. Something seen only by artificial eyes, set in artificial heads.
And in Deanna's closet, he found a box. He recognized everything in it.
Obviously, this one is larger than this one. Very often, size matters.
Mannequins like these, in creative poses, provide hours of eye candy. Some sentimental. They line shelves, decorate mantelpieces. It's a family reunion inspired not by love, but by greed. Was the visitor to the cell that night an avenging spirit rejected by a sickly old man, a dishonest, devious boss? It's a bitter, nasty hull of a man. In fact, the dead are probably the only people he hasn't offended. Much too complicated to be understood by the human brain. Repressed memory, total recall, deja vu, all found here. The fact that Beverly happened to select a hidden treasure from the trash could have been just a coincidence. But then what about the stove turning on by itself to heat up the tea kettle? And within her treasure chest is an item with a power so great it could do battle with fate itself. The box was locked tight and stored out of harm's way. But the time had come now to bring out the weapon again.
Was the little boy Jeremy the reincarnation of
The ghostly spirit.
of the little boy who seemed to be possessed by a Chinese spirit? The seduction of gambling, bright colors, constant action, the surge of adrenaline as you put your stakes in the line. Most gamblers know that they're prisoners to the whims of fortune. But what if you could beat the odds? What if you could eliminate chance? Behind all the bluff and bravado of poker, the days when a loser had to pay with more than his money. Sometimes he had to pay with his life.
It's you against the dealer. Well, Fast Eddie loves to cheat people out of their money. He's a cold, calculating, unfeeling human being. As a professional dealer for an underground card club, he understands well the odds of the game. As an expert, was he an expert at disarming security devices? Was he employing some elaborate card counting system, the kind banned by major casinos? Many generals have planned their battles over boards such as these. But chess is more than a microcosm of war. Relationships forged over a chessboard have a special quality. The duel of wits is encased in a time warp. Hours pass in which nothing exists but you, your opponent, and the board. Claire was never able to summon up the powers of telekinesis again. Do you think this story of friends playing chess is true? Or are we playing a game of cat and mouse with you? One of the things that brings people together is the joy of cooking. Thousands visit with their neighbors every day to exchange and discuss their favorite recipes. But there's something else stirring this particular day. And it'll take all the power at their command to survive the ordeal. Their bodies were discovered 3 days later. The entire crime was recorded by a security camera secretly installed by a suspicious wife. Was this a series of disastrous accidents, or was there something else at work? Could it be that the supernatural took over, controlled by the deadly anger of a betrayed wife? Is this cruel joke based on an actual event, or have we ignited an explosion of lies? And what about this unusually shaped chair? Was the hooded chair really cursed? Was it the same chair Napoleon sat on before he met his Waterloo? Was there a demented villain working behind the scenes? Or perhaps there are no explanations to be found in the real world. How many reports have you watched and read about the dangers of stress? Diane Troyer was feeling the major symptoms of stress in her life. She was determined to shake off its effects and find a place where she could relax and enjoy the world again. But is there such a place? Diana's about to find out. At the moment, she's so ashamed of her appearance that she's hiding her face with heavy creams and lotions. If her face was still beautiful, why did she see herself in the mirror as ugly? Was it simply her imagination that led her to believe her face was hideous? Or was she somehow looking into her soul and seeing the ugliness that existed there? Was she just the victim of her own greedy treachery? Does the story of the deadly diamond sound like an out-and-out lie? Or does it bear the ring of truth? Then why was it that only she could see the images? And if she was only imagining them, then how could her imaginings have come true? The doctor in our story claims that she has pioneered a unique new treatment to deprogram misguided teenagers from witchcraft. She tricks them into taking vows for good, not evil. The doctor is really a good witch, using her own positive power to battle evil. What really goes on in a mind still unspoiled by most of the conventions and inhibitions of society? Should drawings like these be simply thought of as the expressions of innocent minds? What is truly behind the mysteries that animals seem to possess? Take this elephant. Even a simple question like, how many legs does it have, can be difficult to answer. What about the story of the man who seemed to receive evil blood from a transfusion?
Did the electric shock he received from the dryer give him some kind of psychokinetic energy and then take it away again? What caused the elevator to malfunction at that particular time? It had never done that before or after.
What mysteries lie within the frame of a portrait? Why do the eyes of a painting often seem to follow us as we walk across a room? Was there some sort of electrical short behind those exploding lights? Perhaps the crooks caused the short when they tampered with the security system. Then the building had never experienced any sort of wiring problems in the past. Is it logical to assume such a coincidence could happen at the exact same time Vic was experimenting with telekinesis? Did Izzy really commit suicide? Or did he somehow fake his own death to terrorize his boss? Was the morgue attendant in on the deception too? Or did Izzy's spirit actually come back to wreak revenge on his insensitive boss? Enough names, numbers, and statistics can be stored here to accommodate the most active social life. But all the information about the opposite sex is meaningless unless it's accompanied by an understanding of the heart. In addition, video cassettes where you can meet potential mates on tape, and of course the internet, where you can now surf for a partner on a hope and a motive. She's tried every method of finding the right guy. The story you've just seen was suppressed for years and is still denied by the medical community. No one is claiming that Troy gave birth to an octopus, only that one was surgically removed from inside her body. Despite the contradictions and cover-ups by those involved, can this really be possible? Can a fertilized octopus egg ingested into the human system actually grow inside the body? Certainly other organisms can. Parasites such as tapeworms have grown to enormous size inside their human hosts. Do you accept this tale of an octopus who lived inside a human being as true, or is there something fishy going on here?
He buried the body in a raised planter box inside the building's atrium. Everyone present swore they saw two ghosts that night. But without the film, there was no proof. Was this a case of group hypnosis? Was it a jealous colleague, or perhaps an angry ghost?
Was the house really possessed by the spirit of the original owner? Maybe there was some angelic spirit watching over the pharmacy. Or was she lured there by something deeper? Could it have been the strength of a dead man's? Was this hated man in life trying to redeem himself in death? Were her delusions brought on by deep-seated guilt? Or was she being tormented and manipulated by her righteous neighbor? So was the strange hitchhiker that disappeared a ghost? Some who don't believe in spirits have suggested that perhaps the hitchhiker was a professional escape artist. If so, what could have led him to spend his life lending spiritual enlightenment? Drifter, angel, or ghost? Is this story of a stranger who hopped a ride true, or is there a hitch to it? That the doctor had faked his own death years ago and was now living as a hermit by the lake, only appearing at those times when he senses people need help. Jason is a young man with very little in the way of material things. He's been raised by foster parents and is working hard to get into college. What could the explanation for this be? Were there gases trapped within the milk bucket that caused the activity? Or was there some spirit using the bucket to send a distress signal? Is this story of the milk can that seems possessed the truth?
Is this story of the mysterious head based on fact? Or are we up to more skullduggery?
Could it have been an optical illusion caused by some odd convergence of light and shadow? Or was it some otherworldly message sent as a warning beacon to lead them back to their home? Was this an out-of-body experience?
Alien beings travel light years to Earth, single out human specimens, perform painful experiments, and return the damaged goods. Although the whole abduction phenomenon sounds far-fetched, I don't pretend to know what's going on, but clearly, something is.
Today's home pregnancy tests are available everywhere and can be purchased right alongside the beer and potato chips. Sad to say that shortly after reading Kim's diary, they were involved in a fatal traffic accident. Was their untimely end really predicted by Kim? Or were they so frightened that they were driving in a state of blind panic, bringing about their own demise? But then, How do you explain the accuracy of all those other prophecies on Kim's computer? Could the crime scene have been manipulated by a third party, or is it possible that the wife's restless spirit returned to her body for one last act of revenge? Why did his neck show signs of strangulation? Did he accidentally strangle himself as he was trying to gasp for air? Or was it some retribution from beyond? People have been known to call upon superhuman strength in times of crises. Can you remember the tallest man you've ever seen? I stand 6'4". In this story, there may be a man that doubles the size of the tallest man in the world. That is, if you can believe the eyewitnesses. Then how do you explain the witnesses who claimed to see a giant? Were they experiencing mass hallucination? How was the doctor able to send email without a computer? Does the mind have enough power to send out a signal that can be received through cyberspace? Is there such a thing as ESP mail? And how do you explain the hieroglyphics that appeared on the screen? Medical books list examples of a condition called lycanthropy. People who take on wolf-like behavior, often in the presence of a full moon. How do you explain the claw marks? Could those have been made by a terrified man? Or more likely, by a kind of wolf man? But why did he die? Was he the victim of a werewolf legend come true? Or did he fear his fate so deeply that he scared himself to death? Now it's time to find out which of our stories tonight are inspired by actual events, and which ones are totally false. Let's take a look back at the computer that seemed to communicate email through telepathy. Is it based on reality? Yes, it is. Did the story of the exploding milk bucket really happen? This story was inspired by an actual event. Did you think we made up this story of a paranormal chess game? You're wrong. It happened.
This is Thor of Asgard.